Hello guys, it's me, the RetroDen, and as always I'm late to the party, but I have 100% completed Elden Ring. First things first, let me justify myself by saying that I didn't record anything throughout my playthrough as I wanted to be fully immersed in the game, so what you will be seeing in the background is just random footage from Elden Ring, as at this point I just want to leave my thoughts on the game here eternalized on this channel. So I completed Elden Ring sometime around last month, and it was probably the easiest Souls game I've ever completed. Nevertheless, the game is indeed a masterpiece and probably one of the best games ever released, not just by fromsoftware, but in the history of gaming. The thing I'd like to get out of the way is that I'm pretty divided on the open world aspect of the game. While from one side I like it and I think it adds very positive aspects to the game, such as the possibility of backtracking and scavenging for loot and different items for your builds, I think it definitely removes the importance that some bosses had as roadblocks for players in the previous Souls entries, such as Ornstein and Smough or Pontiff Sullivan, which some people might disagree, seeing as Elden Ring has undoubtedly the hardest bosses ever made for a Soulsborne game, but in my opinion that doesn't count, since the hardest bosses in this game are completely optional. Jumping from that segment, the boss quality in this game is something out of this world. While some might argue that the optional bosses located in caves are just copy-pasted one from the other, there is no discussion when it comes to how great and how fluid every boss in this game is, especially things like Malenia, which completely and utterly destroyed me in-game and mentally, having me questioning my video games as an hobby in general. The character building in this game, while being different in certain aspects such as the Spirit Ashes and Ashes of War, is no different than other Souls games, which is a good system that I don't think really needed changing. That being said, the different archetypes of builds are still here, and I personally went for a Strength and Faith build, which I think suited my playstyle better. As for the equipment, this was, as expected, the game that featured the most amount of weapon and armor variety in the entirety of fromsoftware's roster, which included some beautiful and astonishing armory and weaponry. Miyazaki was also kind enough to feature a large quantity of upgrade materials in the game, so that you weren't limited to one weapon throughout your entire playthrough like you used to be in Dark Souls. As for the discussion of Spirit Ashes and Summons, I literally don't care about it. I will never advocate for people to play a game in a way they don't feel like doing so, and I will always respect the person who beat the game in a way they could, instead of a person who set up arbitrary roadblocks to use them as an excuse to have a superiority complex over other players. Moving on to the topic of world building, I don't think there's much to be said that hasn't been said throughout Miyazaki's career. The storytelling through the amazing scenarios and views is still present in Elden Ring and is a delicate treat for all of those who are interested in the deeper aspects of the lore, within a plethora of YouTube videos from talented creators for you to watch. The quests are still as complicated as they get, and I only bothered to go for the ones I knew I needed to complete, like the Rani questline, which provides you with the amazing Dark Moon Greatsword, which is this game's iteration of the Moonlight Greatsword. As for the general gameplay feel, I don't have much to say other than that the jump button was an interesting addition, which took some time getting used to, and the addition of Torrent, the horse, which drastically changed the moment-to-moment gameplay, as it basically gave you a skill pass and gave you different ways to approach combat in every scenario it was available. As for the journey to 100% the game, I'd say this is probably the friendliest game to complete and the one I would recommend any future Souls fan to complete first. When I say complete, I mean achievement wise, because I still think, despite Elden Ring being very good, Dark Souls are a better introductory games to this genre. I'd like to also take a moment in this video to give a highlight to my favorite zone in the game, which is the Underground, because I really think they outdid themselves in the area design of the Underground rivers and the way they were included in the game. The whole elevator build-up of the long time to go down, the walk up to the zone, and there you go, an infinity of stars ahead of you that geographically makes no sense, but it doesn't need to make sense because it just looks beautiful and is good inside of the game, which is the only important part of it. Inside of these zones in the Underground, there is also another thing that caught my eye, which were these huge, unsettling skeleton statues sitting on immense thrones, which managed to feel both unsettling and astonishing at the same time, and I found myself just staring in front of them, admiring them, and trying to understand what they meant to the Elden Ring world in general. Weirdly, this is the only Soulsborne game in which I can't point out a favorite boss, as they were all so good in their own way, not leaving any room of quality for me to pick out one. If I were to go by looks, I would also be doing it in a weird way, since the boss I think looks better is from the DLC, which I haven't played yet and don't plan on doing so anytime soon. I don't feel like taking up more of your time, so I think it's time we wrap up this video with some final thoughts. Overall, Elden Ring is a masterpiece that everyone who has access to the game should try, and it's one of the new cornerstones of action RPGs or JRPGs in general. It feels like the culmination of everything From Software had been building up for the last few years, with every mechanic up until now perfected. It's probably the best game I've played this year, and one of the only ones that grabbed me from start to finish without any interruption, having me use all of my available free time to progress through the game. If you want my thoughts on any specific thing in the game, I'd be more than willing to discuss it either through the comment section or to the channel's Discord, which is in the main page of the channel, so go join if you want to. But other than that, this has been the Retrodon, and I'm out.